Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's iteration of the At-Risk International Global Risk Intelligence Brief. My name is Cooper McGill. I'm a protective intelligence analyst here at At-Risk International, and we also have on today Ross Hill, the Director of Intel, and Rowan Fisher, another protective intel analyst. First up this week, we're going to be taking a look at U.S. China Relations. So on August 2nd through 3rd, as was likely seen by many in the news, Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan during a scheduled trip to a number of different Asian nations. This visit came following repeated warnings from China that China would see this visit by Pelosi, sort of as an escalation in U.S. Taiwan and Chinese Taiwan relations. Following Pelosi's departure from Taiwan, China has since been conducting a number of live-fire military exercises in the region and in close proximity to Taiwan. These have been both naval and aerial exercises. Additionally, China has halted cooperation and discussions on multiple different topics between China and the United States, from efforts to combat drug trafficking, repatriation of illegal immigrants, but most notably discussions over climate change. Climate change discussions so far have been one of the last sort of major points of communication between the two countries. So it is seen as pretty significant that these talks are being halted for the time being. Additionally, discussions between U.S. and Chinese senior level military leadership, those discussions have been halted as well. In the near term, an invasion of Taiwan remains unlikely, at least presently, and a major escalation or major military escalation between the United States and Taiwan also remains unlikely. However, given the halting of these communication channels and the just the lack of communication at this point between the United States and China, there's a definite risk of escalation by miscommunication as we move forward, and may lack an ability to communicate with China given any mistakes or missteps in the region. I will now pass it over to Rowan Fisher.
Thanks, Cooper. Recent events demonstrate that white supremacist groups remain a considerable and persistent threat. Groups like Patriot Front, Goyim Defense League, the Identity Evropa, and the Nationalist Socialist Club frequently hold recruiting and training events, as well as organizing protests and counter-protests. Over the past few months, many protests and counter-protests have been directed at pro-abortion and LGBTQ gatherings. Several white supremacist groups are trying to increase their support base and widen their acceptance among larger audiences. Many of these groups have officially renounced violence and instead rely on demonstrations and propaganda to sway public opinion. However, many individuals subscribing to hateful ideology have committed deadly attacks. Recent attacks include the August 2019 attack on Walmart patrons in El Paso, Texas. That attack left 21 dead. The October 2018 attack where a gunman killed 11 at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And most recently, the May 2022 attack at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, that left 10 murdered. And lastly, according to the ADL, last year the distribution of white supremacist propaganda remained at historic levels in the U.S. In 2021, hateful propaganda appeared in every state except Hawaii. The highest levels of propaganda activity were reported in Pennsylvania, Virginia, Texas, Massachusetts, Washington State, Maryland, and New York. And now passing it over to Ross Hill. Ross?
Thanks, Raymond. Kenya's presidential election will take place tomorrow, looking into a fairly close race between the two main candidates, Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Odinga was given a reasonable lead in final polling, but Ruto called the polls fake, but although he did say that he would actually respect the election outcome. Official results will be announced within about a week of the vote. To win outright, the candidate needs more than half of all votes and then at least 25% of the votes in more than half of Kenya's 47 counties. If we don't have an outright winner, there'll be a runoff within about 30 days. There are some concerns that the election will result in violence. We did see some violence in the last election in 2017, but we haven't really seen any significant election violence since around about 2007, when more than 1,000 people were killed and 600,000 people displaced. Also, the lead up to this vote has actually been relatively peaceful by Kenyan election standards, but political rhetoric has got a little bit more stronger as we got closer to the vote. In 2017, the election was actually rerun after the result was challenged in the Supreme Court, and the candidates or others have a week after the results to file a petition to the court if they want to challenge the result. And a legal challenge is quite likely if the result is very close. The danger scenario we actually see is if the loser refuses to accept the result, makes some allegations around voting irregularities, and then calls for protests instead of actually mounting that legal challenge. And Kenya is East Africa's economic and commercial hub, so any significant disruption there is also negative for the region. That's it from us this week. We hope you found the information useful, and we'll see you again soon.